Hello and welcome into the Sorare Data Show. I am Andrew Lairdinho. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined once again by psufans2 today to talk about more of the new Sorare. Sean, are you ready?
No, but I mean, I understand the strategy behind where things should go. I just like, for example, I was waiting for a certain website to get their filters out, so that happened today. But I haven't looked through everything yet. I knew I did the first part of what I knew I needed to do, but that was obviously at the highest end because I knew it was like going to become an issue for me. So I just took care of it immediately. So like that was my last week's preparation. And then now this week, like I think there's a well, we'll talk about it. I think there's like an underlying issue with like when they did this that is like neutering people from wanting to buy cards for the time being to some extent, or like, but it's not like people that like I don't think through it or haven't thought through it well enough or literally don't read the updates are buying. But I think a lot of other people who have thought through it is like, why would I do that right now?
I think that's such a good point and totally agree that it feels like the people who snap are either snap buying or snap selling. The, the ones who are snap buying are just like, yeah, I've got this figured out. And then you're like, oh, can you explain it to me? And they start going through it and you're like, yeah, but what about, and they're like, oh, well, and you're like, and this other thing. And they're like, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
uh-oh.
Like I don't really understand why a bunch of like Bundesliga and La Liga cards are in season and being paid like a lot for currently compared to like old season. I do get it. There's that little overlap. It's very small. But yeah, it's confusing to me.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Thank you to everybody for coming in. It looks like, let's see. Toby was first. So glad Sorare I got the new filters up. Really helpful. My split of 3 starting keepers in Challenger with 8 in Contender seems suboptimal. Spent a good 3 hours a couple days ago adding depth to Challenger Rare. Philly Dilly has a 1 p.m. meeting. Just clearly wanted to check in. Hopefully can catch the end of the show live. Shout out to Future Me watching on YouTube, which I think is really funny. And Kai also on the podium today. Let's see. Sora Holland, Ian, Mike Bastin, Surfula, what's up? Anyan, appreciate you guys coming in. Tuggy's here, Mike Bastin. Sora Malta, what a beautiful evening for a gallery restructure. As Sean and I were just talking about how we're just like freezing our nuts off here. Anyway, Daniel Cooper says strategy is still the same, no? Spend more money on better players and more quality and depth.
I mean, I actually think it's different a little bit.
I agree. Alex Wilson said, I'm buying Premier League cards because I'm an idiot. I think on the scale of not idiot to idiot, that's closer to not idiot, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't sit there and say you're an idiot today. I would say that you are undecided.
I'll wait for a few weeks and then call you an
No,
idiot.
I mean, like, people like Pranksy. Did you see Pranksy's deals with Tom C this weekend?
So, yes, yes, I did. It appears that Pranksy is preparing, and I don't talk to Pranksy. I have no idea what their plans are.
Yeah.
But it feels like the plan is, let me just get every new season card I can for the competitions that start to run, and these new cards will not be eligible for.
Yeah. And he's just giving up all of his like Italy for like Spain and Bundesliga, which like I do think there's additional value there. But when you're sitting out there, I forget the one, it was Leao for like some pile. Who was it?
It was a 1-for-1. It was
1-for-1, and the one was like Leao. He gave Leao and got something that I was just like, this guy is not even close. We're now gonna have to look this up. But I was just like, he did another deal with like Osherman and Kvaratskhelia for like other dross.
It was Leao for Memphis Depay.
Yeah, I love Depay. And I'm just like, what?
So that's a funny thing. You don't love Leao and you love Depay.
Yeah.
And yet you were like, how could you ever? Yeah.
I dislike Leao and I like Depay, and I was just like, what?
Yeah, Leao celebration card, no less. Anyway, a few more people in. Scosmo, what's up? Parrot Press says, I'm 100% not buying right now to see how things pan out. the day before. I'm not even going to get into that. Never mind. Ron Romero, what's up? Anthony, hello. Nick said, will you be allowed to enter multiple U23 lineups? I believe so.
I would think so, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. Toby said, I used the panic to grab a Steve Clark for 130 euros, which I actually have no idea what that goes for, like whether that's good or not. I don't know. Pranksy's lost his mind, apparent. According to Scosmo, Alex said, I think they've seen the light in winning cash with the Premier League comp, which, yeah, I mean, it's there. And so Pico says only one in U23. I think in March it's one, and in August it's multiple. That's how I'll put it.
Oh, well, so during the transition, can you pull up the transitional like situation? So in March, the ones in the box are 3 and 3, correct?
These are, yes.
Yes. And the ones outside the box are 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I didn't know that. Well, I did. I think I didn't care enough to figure it out for sure.
Yeah. Like you were never going to be able to do 3 all-star lineups.
Gotcha. Yeah. And only people that have been on the platform and had previously played can play those.
Correct. Also correct. It's actually as of, it like might be tomorrow.
Yeah, whatever. It's next game week, I think.
So everyone who's in, let's get in.
Okay.
So Sean and I are not here to talk about our own gallery specifically, or like what our strategies are. But I think what we need to discuss is basically the dates of everything again, as we're like going through this U23, one until only one entry until August. But Sean, when you kind of look at your gallery, and you just said you haven't done this yet, but how much are you going to be looking at, like the depth that you have? Or let me rephrase. When you break it all down, are you going to think like I need 3 elite lineups everywhere?
No, I don't think you need 3 elite lineups everywhere. So also Ron Romero just said Thork is doing some big moves in his gallery. Quite impressive. Scosmo, question you had earlier about uniques. You should go look at what Thork did, because that's similar to like what you're looking at doing. So just wanted to do that, point that out to Scosmo, because he actually was talking to me about it earlier. So it's more of the like transactions with uniques. So like I don't think you need 3 elite level lineups every single spot.
Can we just clarify that the strategy with uniques is getting rid of them?
Correct. Which is Scosmo's like, should I get rid of them or not get rid of them? And yeah, I think Scosmo's like, should I get rid of them or play? And I'm like, and he's like, I'm like, if you get rid of them, I don't know what you're really going to get for them. So good luck with that. Brad said, I'm going to guess Sean is one of the most prepared for the changeover already. Yes and no. I typically keep my gallery in a position to where like I can go with whatever nonsense Sorare pulls, because I learned very early on that Sorare could just do shit and you just sort of have to roll with that shit, whatever it is. So I like my gallery typically is prepared for lots of moves. The issue is like, I think we look at like rare Premier League, for example. I probably have nothing. And it's a situation where it's like we'll need to figure out what I want to do. I think my strategy is to like, I probably want to have 3 old season lineups in like every competition, and then I want like 1 new season lineup in every competition, so that I can play for the cash and figure out how to do it. And then obviously as the season goes, I will play more and more in those competitions, and then have 6 lineups across the line. But like Premier League, like I don't know if I'm going to have that many cards there, so it'll be a little bit difficult. So I think for like other people, like I think the strategy is, one, we've talked about before, like it made sense to like have stuff consolidated together. Now you have to. You literally cannot not have stuff consolidated. Like you cannot have MLS cards with Argentina cards. Like it does not work. So like you now really have to focus within one league. I think that if you're not focusing within one league or focusing on something in that line of thinking, you're going to be really struggling. So People really need to come up with a game plan of like how they want to approach things, and they really need to act on whatever that game plan is. So what is your thoughts on that?
I was actually going to kind of follow up with that of whether, and this is really just how you want to play it, but I wonder how many people will say my gallery is split between realistically challengers and contenders. And they're like, all right, instead of trying to do both, let me just focus on one. And you can remember that you can have up to 3 lineups now in classic contenders if you want. And so I don't think it's necessarily bad to be split if you know that it's probably making you weaker in both. Like it's, unless you're like ready to go for quality in both, you're going to, I feel like so many people are going to be like, I'm going to compete in challengers and contenders because I have all these cards, kind of not ignoring, but not appreciating like what the multi-entry can really provide if you just went all in one division.
Yeah, and then you always have depth there, and then you don't have to focus on it.
Exactly.
Well, but the counterpoint to that, right, is that you will eventually max out like what you can realistically do in that one. So Surf, actually, we were talking about it this weekend, and he's like, I might only go into contender and not focus on challenger at all. And then Coops was like, yeah, but like Coops like, I think I need to get out of my challenger guys. I look at his challenger guys. He's got a Messi super rare, a Gil super rare, a Pooge super rare, and I'm like, why are you getting out of this? I'm like, you literally have the best lineup put together already. I'm like, why would you get out of that? I'm like, just get a couple more guys and run that and your challenger and your contender guys. So I think that that's the case. And actually, one of the biggest takeaways that I think exists right now, and I think people need to take advantage of it now. And this was something like right away, I was like, this is important and you need to take care of it and figure it out. There's lots of good trading situations, I think, that are even trades with people that address their issues. So like, for example, if you have a lot of challenger and very little contender, you might find someone that has very little challenger and a lot of contender, and you guys have a mutually beneficial trade where you can trade the one for the other and champ or vice versa. So like, for example, Scosmo and I last week, that was my big thing, is like when this hit, my uniques and champ were just never going to cut it. Like I'm never going to get the job done. I'm never going to have enough uniques to play in champ unique. So it's just like, I have these uniques that literally I cannot use anymore. And it's not even like they're good uniques that I want to use in like a super rare division, even though I wouldn't want to do that regardless. But like, I'm not sitting there in the super rare division like, oh, I can't wait to play Emerson from West Ham in this lineup. I'm like, if I'm not playing many unique, I just don't really want the card. So Scosmo and I sat there like all day Friday. Like we came up with a valuation that we agreed worked between my champ cards, because he had more champ cards and he didn't have enough contender cards because he just wouldn't be able to make a lineup. Like he literally couldn't make a lineup. So we sat there and we took like 6 to 8 hours. I think Friday, it could have been Thursday, one of the two. And we sat there and figured out, okay, this is like what makes sense for me and what makes sense for you. And we did like a 15 unique trade that basically I got out of champ, he got out of contender, where neither of us were going to be able to play that region because of our lack of cards in those regions, and the other could play them. So I think there's definitely spots right now, especially like at the super rare level, where like some people are going to have a lot of super rares that are maybe contender eligible but not challenger eligible, and you can find a partner that sort of meets what you're looking for in terms of criteria of like what you need out of and what you need into. Similarly, like there's people that are just getting out of rare or out of super rare because they just were playing rare pro and it just isn't a realistic option for them, and they're going back down to rare. And so like you may be able to get some super rares in for rares, and like there's going to be mutually beneficial options for people to make.
Yeah, a few people in chat are kind of bringing this up. I think in theory, we think it should be easier to do these kind of equal-sided trades of, hey, I'm trying to get out of contender to get into challenger, or vice versa. Let's figure something out. And I agree with Tuggy here. He said, I thought it would be easier to swap challenger for contender, which I think some people would look at that as like, not like a downgrade, but I think challenger is looked at higher than contender. So if you were like trying to get rid of those cards, it should be easier to get contender. But I think people just like, the market is really weird now. Like nobody really wants to make a deal because we're not quite sure how everything's going to work out. They announced today that Specialist is back for next week. And it's like, boy, that's kind of out of nowhere. And if the out of nowhere special weeklies are going to be the norm, then why would we make any deals at this point?
Well, the issue is you have people that trading is difficult on the platform because people are stubborn and they just want to take advantage of the other person. That's just how it is. Makes it difficult. So Alex said that he's got an even split, plans on running 240 and seeing where I need to spend come July, August. Like I think that's a bad course of action, right? I think waiting 6 months and then being like, oh man, I'm screwed. I can't do anything. And then just being in a situation where your hands are tied is just a bad option. I think you're much better prepared to figure out where you need to shift and do it over the next like month or so. Because the thing is like everybody that effectively trades out of a certain scarcity into another scarcity or moves out of a region into another region, like each person that does that, you lose the opportunity to like trade with someone, right? And there's only gonna be so many people that will realistically match up with your trading options or like your ideas of what you're doing. And if those people don't exist anymore, then you just have a bunch of cards that are maybe illiquid at the time that you can't even use because they just don't work. So like I think there's merit to like still running 240, but like for example, if you're running cap 240 and you have a split, like you could easily turn that split into not a split and still run cap 240 over the next 6 months. But then when that 6 months ends, you're good. Not to mention cap 240 kind of blows and it's not going to be very good for the next 6 months anyways.
It's certainly not as like rewarding.
It's probably
literally and figuratively.
It's literally like probably like 60% worse. Like it's pretty not great. So I think that it's just not the best course of action to sit on your hands right now and do nothing. I'm not saying rush into something and do something stupid, but like I really think people need to prepare with what makes the most sense for them for the upcoming transition phase.
I think there's a funny thing about the way that a lot of people had their like how their plans probably shouldn't be as different as they were 2 weeks ago. Meaning, like if you had a certain stack or a certain league that you had cards from, and now there's if you're a Eredivisie guy, you have all these Eredivisie cards, and you're like, but I only want to play Challenger. I actually don't want to play anything else. It kind of reminds me of like Surf and Coops, who have these like elite America cards, and they play them in America to win America cards, and they can still do that. They're obviously the pool of rewards that you can get is different, but fundamentally you still have like elite cards within a competition and you win cards in that competition. And I feel like there are going to be a lot of people who kind of blow up their plans because they're like, everything's different. And when you walk them through it, you're like, is it actually that much different? And it just might not be. Those two kind of reminded me though. Somebody mentioned, I think it was in the Sorare, that Argentina Discord, that 32 of the 48 non-European teams in contenders, so 32 of 48 are either J League or K League. And so like in the summer, you're probably winning one of those if you're playing contenders.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing like Challengers, like MLS and like 3 teams in Brazil. But I don't think people are saying like, oh, it's bad to win MLS cards. I don't think it's bad because I think that actually like the way things are going to work now in the contender and challenger areas, there's always going to be like a half season overlap where you have new season cards of a certain leagues and they will be new season for the start of the year. Whereas like, so like when, for example, if I win MLS cards, when the Dutch league starts, the Belgian league starts, I have new season cards that can be played in new season competition with my Jubilar cards and my Dutch cards.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that overlook that the cash competitions certainly the cash competitions will be running, and you'll have the new season MLS cards much earlier, obviously, like months early, MLS, J League, K League, than you will the European ones that start up again in July and August and whatever it is. So I assume the expectation is that the prizes are much lower, though.
Correct. What the issue, right, is we're going off a lot of incomplete information right now. We don't know what the prize pools are going to look like for in season and classic. For like what we know right now is we knew Champ Europe, right? Like that's what we sort of have an idea on.
I don't think we have. I mean, we have like a complete estimate on from
Correct.
their release. I don't think there's any like actual validity in that, other than the potential ratios versus the other competitions.
Correct. So like you have a situation where like you just don't have the information needed to make full answers. So like the key piece of information that we don't have, which is part of the issue from this update, is just like it's like I can't make decisions. I don't have the information, which is shitty, right? First bit of information that you don't have the rewards and the prize pools. You don't know what's going to be in season. You don't know what's going to be out of season because it's not known yet. So that's one. Two, midweeks. We have no idea what they're going to do in the midweeks. And that's difficult because like if midweeks are just horrendous prize pools, maybe you don't need guys that play in the midweek, right? And maybe it's just way less appealing to have guys in midweek. On the counter, if the midweeks are great and something becomes really productive, then you want guys in the midweek. So like that's part of the issue point as well. And then the third one is we don't know what they're going to do for weekly specials. We have no idea how good those are going to be, and we don't really know what they're going to use. We have an idea. Like I think the typical like the current like thought process behind it, right, is like they're going to use a bunch of cat modes. Like that's going to be a lot of the weekly specials. And I think that's like a decent assumption. There's going to be other stuff, but like that's going to be at least a decent assumption. But like with those three things, like there's so much up in the air with non Premier League. Like Premier League, I'm pretty confident what we're getting with the Premier League, right?
Yeah.
We're going to get in season, we're going to get out of season. We have a pretty good idea what they're going to give for in season. We don't know what they're going to get for out of season, but we know that I'm going to be able to run 3 lineups in each over and over again. And then we know like there's going to be rewards, and we know that you can use those also in champs. So like we have an idea with that. It's a lot more tricky when you get down to the challenger and contenders.
Yeah, it feels like from talking with a few people, include or listening to people from Sorare, it feels like the midweeks and special weeklies are going to be good. And I hesitated to like how to put that, because I feel like there are going to be these situations where maybe they think that they're really good and we're all like, nobody wants this. You're muted.
Yeah, where we're just sitting there and we're like, yeah, this is absolute dog shit. Like, what am I
Right.
playing? So yeah, so it's gonna be tricky. And then also Blue Crypto brings up, how about the auctions process starting in August? Will we get all the cards in the market at once? Will the entry conditions be progressive? My understanding is the entry conditions are not progressive. They start and they will be the same throughout the whole year, which does not make the most sense to me, but that's what it seems like it's going to be. And then also, like, we don't know how it's going to work, especially like, look, limiteds and rares. I'm pretty confident you're going to be able to get cards. It's not going to be tricky. It's going to be the super rares. Like, how are they going to distribute super rares and uniques? Like, I don't know how they're going to do those. Like, it's a lot more tricky when you only have one of one card to give away. Whereas, like, limited is like you put 100 on available day one for like a buy now price, and it's not the end of the world. So it's just there's a lot of answers that are unknown at the moment, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Maddie said, I really see a big demand for Champ Europe cards, especially Premier League, Bundesliga, and La Liga, because you can line up 12 classic teams from only 3 leagues compared to 6 for contender and challenger. The issue is kind of just what who was that before? Blues Crypto. Like, we don't know how the cards are getting distributed. The whole like bug last week of rare cards and super rare showing up at buy now obviously shows their hand quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's who knows if the entire supply of things that they could sell are given away, not given away, but made available on day one, or what. But I think we need to start really thinking that there's going to be a different way to buy cards other than auctions.
Correct. Like, are you going to be able to sit there and like, is Mbappe going to have 6 super rares on like whatever it is day one?
Day
like,
one.
I don't know.
How big of a risk do you think there is to somebody like Pavel buying everything?
Definite risk. There's definitely risk. I was talking to Bellama about this. You could buy 15 Jude rares next year. Use every single one every week. 15.
And what if you bought the first 15?
No one else can run them, in theory. If they, yeah. So like, I think you're gonna see a lot more whales, like by multiples of cards, like Jude being a good example of who one might be. I think that like you could see someone buy like 5 Judes and be like, I'm going to run them in my best U23 lineup, 3 La Liga lineups, and then my best champion in season lineup. Something like I just think there's definitely merit where like you're going to see some whale limiteds. I wouldn't worry about. Rares definitely more so. Like super rares, like someone could buy a 5 Jude super rares. They could easily buy 5 Jude super rares and get usage out of them.
Absolutely.
Blue Crypto said maybe they'll go with the Dutch auction. I definitely think a Dutch auction is possible. That would be a logical wait for them to go. Alex Wilson said surely U23 isn't worth it anymore. So I've had a lot more time to think on the U23 discussion. I'm not going to go fully into it because Laird and I disagree with the U23 purpose. What I will say is I think U23s in contender and challenger are more valuable because you can win Jude with them. I think using Jude type U23s in U23 to win like K-League guys is less valuable than the alternatives. So that's my thoughts from a U23 perspective. And like, I think, so part of it too is like, I've seen a lot of the shit on Twitter about like, people are like, old season cards are dead. They're not dead. People are like, U23 is dead. It's not dead. And like, I was bashing U23 last week and I still think it definitely took a hit, but it's not like it's dead. Like it's still in a region where you can win cards from anywhere. And like, there's still going to be some value in it because it gives you another opportunity to play your cards that you don't have otherwise. So like people are going on like super extremes with these. Like old cards aren't dead, but they're also like not as good as what they used to be. I think people are taking things to way too far of extremes.
So I just want to like clarify something because unless I misunderstood you. So Fling Flong said that's good news because my gallery is completely U23 Champ Europe players. Fantastic. You're saying that it's not those players that are actually I mean, they're obviously helpful because you can play them in Champ Europe. Right. But the point of U23 is actually to use the K-League U23s to win Jude, not use Champ Europe U23s to try to win U23.
Correct. I mean, I think that's
sarcastic. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still think it's not bad because there are plenty of people who use Jude to try to win Jude.
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to go into the U23 discussion again because it just is, it's a frustrating discussion. Like I've seen people discuss U23 and like, I fundamentally think they're wrong, including you. But I also know that you're not going to change your opinion on it. So I also just live like, whatever. Like, if you don't think that U23 took a hit, good for you, because I don't know what you're looking at.
What was I going with that? I forget.
Investor Durr said U23 is the only global competition. Just because of that is interesting. That I agree with. Like there is interest in it. Again, like I said, like you can use K-League guys to win Jude. That's the only spot you can do that. That is valuable to do.
So I think it's possible that. So we know, no, we don't know. I'm under the assumption that they tried to get rid of U23 and that they were like, we don't want any global comps. And that includes U23. And with all of the people that they met with, all the users they met with, they were like, oh no, people like U23. And I joked with this. They were like, we know everyone likes U23, so we're keeping it. And it's like, that's different than giving it the boost that everything else did. But regardless of that, so the blog post gave Champion Europe examples of like what you can win in different divisions and like, oh, Division 3 can still win a star in rare and whatever it was. And there was no U23 example. And again, there wasn't like a challengers or contenders one either. But what if you can't really win Jude? Like if they don't want U23 to be that exciting, the easiest way to do that is to say like, yeah, you can win a star, except it's going to be Nicholas Heidel.
Yeah,
And like how many people are going to play for that?
correct. Well, they're gonna have like a Jude there, right? But like you got to think about it, right? Jude's still getting broken up into 3 divisions.
Yeah.
Jude's still getting broken up into champ, still getting broken up into Bundesliga, and now getting broken up into U23. So there's only going to be a couple Judes available for the whole entirety of the season in U23. And like you said, they're probably not going to want to give them up that frequently.
Sorare FC Seoul also said the U23 K League cards can only win Jude if Jude's also playing in that game week.
Correct.
So like all summer, you can't win Jude.
Correct. Which to be fair, is like half the season, right? Like half the season, you can probably use your K League cards to win Jude.
Yeah, I wonder if, and they clearly won't, but like, would he be in the prize pool during the Euros?
Probably, but like we don't really know what they're going to do from the Euros perspective. Like we don't really know what the plan is for anything anymore. Which is
I'm not sure they do either.
Also, before this update came out, like if I told you before this update came out, Laird, they're just going to take a giant poop on U23. Would you have like laughed at me and been like, no, they're not going to do that? Or would you have been like, yeah, they're going to take a shit on U23's face?
When were you asking me this question?
Like a month ago.
Oh,
if I asked you this a month ago and been like, hey, they're going to do an update in February. Do you think they're going to just take a shit on U23? What would you have said?
I would have no reason to think they would.
Correct. So like that's another like underlying concern for me is just like Sorare can just change shit at like the drop of a hat, and just like some like U23 has been viewed as like one of the like higher pillars of the platform. Like I would say it was pretty much like over the years it's been U23 champ and gas. Like those were like the main options. They just dumped gas. They just neutered U23 and they're just like champ or dive. And so like I mean I feel like having cards and like preparing stuff outside of like champ anymore is just kind of risky because who the hell knows what they're going to do with it.
Why would having like challenger and like what would you think happens to challenger contender?
Who knows? Like they got rid of gas, like they just dumped it, and then they just neutered U23, and it seemed like we both think they want to just get rid of U23. So like, they just want to get rid of U23 for out of nowhere. Which so like it would just always concern me that there's issues that could just be changed based on what they want to do at that time.
Yeah, I guess the way I look at it is I don't think that they necessarily looked at U23 and was like, we need to get rid of that. It was more, let's get rid of global competitions. And U23 happens to be one of them. Like, I don't think they like specifically targeted U23 to get rid of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, but it's just like it feels unstable.
Well, I mean, we just had a gigantic update. So yeah, this is
yeah. So like. Vitali said if there are more than 3 rare Judes in the whole U23 yearly prize, well, I'd be surprised. So yeah, basically just another knock on the U23s, right? They're just like kind of not great. I like here's a point. Someone said again, I don't remember who said this earlier, but like I've heard multiple people be like, I'm gonna go into U23 and that's where I'm gonna invest my resources currently. I think that's crazy right now.
I think that's leading you to the most uncertainty.
Yeah, you're walking down the Tony Watt ledge of I'm gonna go buy 35-year-old Scottish guys for the threshold, and you're just like you're asking to get destroyed by Sorare.
I think those situations are very different. I think the whole like stars will be stars, which everybody wants to keep coming back to, would make you think maybe I shouldn't have a bunch of old SPFL guys. Whereas should I build a gallery where I can win Jude, I think is a little different.
Yeah, but like I feel like people that are saying I'm going to put my resources to U23 are not saying I'm going to go buy Jude. They're saying I'm going to go buy these U23 players that aren't Jude.
To win Jude, though.
Yeah, but we just like
it's also I want to go back. We also said there were 3 places that you can win Jude. It's only 2. Right?
No, it's 3.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was thinking 4 to 3, not 3 to 2.
Well, 3 to 4 because
right. It's not 4.
Well, it could be with like specials and stuff.
Sure.
But well, yeah, we don't know them.
This is exactly Mike's. I think might have brought this up too, but U23 has replaced Rare Pro as the game comp that sits alone, all alone in the whole structure, which is like, that's how it feels for sure.
So Simo said, I'm struggling to find a good reason not to trade out of my current new season cards for their cheaper old season counterparts at the moment. I actually think that's a decent strategy.
I've been thinking about this so much. Like obviously the cash competitions other than the Premier League. So if you had like other champ EU new season cards, from March 29th until what is like May 15th or so, whatever, mid-May, you don't even, let's even call it 2 months. It's just not that much time to like try to win a bunch of cash.
Yeah. I think you're getting like, if you can get like, let's say 25% value, I'm taking that 25% all day right now. Like I don't
probably get an XP boost too. Like it's probably the older cards probably have more XP anyway, even after the transfer.
Probably get an XP boost. You can maybe set up a collection better. Like I think I think that is a very good strategical plan. I think Premier League's a little bit trickier because obviously it's already running.
I agree with that.
But even then, like, I mean, the Premier League, like you get like, so my guess was, so like obviously there's 38 game weeks in the Premier League on a season. Figure like 8 of them are midweeks, right? Like I'm just guessing. I have no idea. So like you figure you get 30 runs at whatever you're doing a year. You probably are getting 10 in the Premier League the rest of the season. So like whatever value you think you could get over a full season, you're like reducing it to 1/3 of that. And I think that there's merit to getting out, but yeah, definitely like the Bundesliga ones and the rest of the cards that are like, I think there's a lot of merit to getting out of the old or the new season into an old season.
I like these two comments here, and I'm actually more interested in hearing what you think because you do not prioritize collections at all. But Investor said, what's your view regarding collections? Somehow it feels like they'll get nerfed as well. And then Brad Craig said, trading down only makes sense if you don't have the first owner bonus on a lot of current season cards. 40 points in the collection versus 20 is a big difference. So I have seen a number of people talk about how they think collections are getting nerfed. And I'm failing to see why, especially when you have league specific competitions where there are only 20 teams that can, like 20 domestic teams that can be made, you can make leagues from. Is Bundesliga 18? Maybe it's not.
No, it's 20.
So like why, what's the negative to collections or why they would get nerfed? Like
just because they're saying like the old season collection just doesn't matter as much, which I do agree with. Like your collection of like a 2022 version of whatever team just isn't matter as much because you can't play it in the in-season competitions.
But that's less a collection question than a new versus old season.
I don't disagree with that. I tend to agree with your take on that, but like that's what I think people are viewing it as.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just like old season cards blow, they suck, they have no value anymore, which isn't necessarily true, which we've addressed, but like also like that's what people think. So like they're like, oh, I don't care as much about my collection because I'm only playing old season cards, which is probably valid.
Yeah, I don't know. Vita said 20 teams, of which only 12 are usable, of which only 5 have a decent stack. Which
yeah, I agree with that too. Like the end season, and like the individual league competitions are going to be really freaking difficult to compete in because like the Premier League, like you just are going to stack Liverpool, and like there's going to be like 15 Liverpool stacks. So if Liverpool pops off and you don't have a Liverpool stack, you're just screwed. Similarly, like if you have a Liverpool stack and you don't have the best like balance or the best collection, you're also screwed. So it's kind of a tricky situation, I would say.
This is a good point from Tuggy here. He said if a card from your collection starts crossing competitions, meaning like you have a challenger you have a challenger collection, and one of those players leaves and becomes a contender card, and you don't have any other contender cards, and that hurts. That can lose utility. So that's a good point, Tuggy.
Also, yeah. So one thing I noticed this week too is like, why are shitbag cards in like the Premier League going for like a lot? Like, why are people like interested in that?
It could be from just what we said, Premier League collections. That if you need as much XP as possible, shitbag Premier League cards to help your Burnley stack helps.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think that's what it is. And I think there's this thought that like, oh, let me get a bunch of terrible cards and I'll play them in Division 4 of the Premier League comp and I'll win. And it's just not, I don't know. We don't know. The one thing that I did want to, because I've seen so many people say this, the whole like, oh, I'll just tank a game week and move down and then I'll win in Division 3. And one thing that Guy said during the Sorare Ramble last week was the division structure and the rewards are set up that you will not want to tank a week, which both made me sound like, well, that's good because we all should be like trying to get to the top. But it also was like, man, the Division 3 and 4 rewards are going to be really bad.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, which is good to some extent. The one thing I saw that I was like baffled by this weekend was people are like, oh man, this removes the risk of your guy going from like Bruges to like Burnley.
So
I was like, no.
that whole conversation was like, you're going to be excited now. And it's like,
no.
No,
like a shitbag card a card that goes and becomes a shitbag champ card is still unusable. Like,
right.
It's still shit. I would much rather the card be good in Challenger than shit in Champ. Now, that said, like, obviously, the one position that there's the caveat on is, like, your goalie goes to Champ. That's great.
Yes.
Any goalie goes to Champ, that's awesome. Any goalie that takes a step up in whatever region they're in, that's great. But player-wise, like, I don't want my, like, center back to go from, like, the best team in the Netherlands to, like, Burnley and get wrecked every week. Like, that's horrendous. I saw that take there, and I was like, no. I was like, that's a really stupid take.
What was that one?
It was just that, like, oh, like your player going from like the top challenger team to like become a dog shit champ player is good, and that's just like, no.
I don't understand why the situation is different in their minds than what we currently have. Like it has nothing to do with the team that the player plays for. It has everything to do with, do they play as much and do they score as well in this new team? And the answer is, other than Grimaldo. And I feel like everything they say is like, no, look at Grimaldo. And it's like, give me one other that like smashed their face off when they moved up to champ. And you can like start to convince me, but there's just like, it's just not there. Like if they don't play or they don't score as well, they're just not as valuable.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was just like, I saw that post and I was just like baffled. Goalies, yeah, like you give me a goalie to take a step up, fantastic. But and then the other thing that I think is way less valuable. So AG Cooper said, do you think the new season cards are going to be like when limiteds were first introduced, obscene prices as people try to get? We don't know how they're going to be distributed yet. So possibly, I guess.
I think
is the answer.
I don't think that there's any way the answer is no.
Correct. But it might not be fully. So Investor Durr said, I kind of disagree. I can line up 24 lineups in Champs League or in Champ versus 6 in Challenger. So for short galleries, a player promotion will help fulfill those 24 lineups. Yeah, but like fulfilling a lineup that is dog shit and never going to win your reward doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. So the next thing I want to hit on that I think this takes a hit a lot, depth. Gallery depth, I think, is way less important except for, like you said, at the champ level. If you have champ level guys that are like solid value pieces, that's very valuable. Whereas like I think now, because like a lot of the benefit with depth previously was midweeks. That's where you gained all of your value with midweeks. And like that's how I had my gallery set up. So like for me, that's a hit. But like so you lose a lot of depth benefits that you previously got, at least as of now. Maybe that will change back once we hear what the midweek ideas are, like what they're planning to do with special and stuff like that. But as of right now, that takes a big hit because like that's where you benefit a lot. Like guys that are like just not that great of plays are just not going to be that valuable. Like if you have a guy that's like pretty shit, like 70, 80% of the time, and then you get like once a month they have a favorable spot, that just doesn't provide the value that it used to provide, I think.
Agreed. I'm trying to go back here because Sower Malta said, is it confirmed that divisions will be in the single league comps? And my response was, I was almost certain. And now I'm trying to scroll through because I don't actually know.
I'm pretty sure that's the case, but
the only reason I say that is because it just feels like it would be way too complicated to not do them.
Correct.
To like only have them in. I can't find the.
So Andy Black, shockingly, Andy Black with a good question. You don't see that every day. What's your take on shit stacks? I tend to run like a St. Louis City or West Ham stack where they can smash every so often, but I'd say most weekends they are going to do terribly. Yes, shockingly, Andy Black. So I actually think there's quite a bit of value in having lower stacks for the idea of like, it's all going to come down to like an ROI perspective. And like, let's say the Liverpool stack costs you $3,000 to compile and the West Ham stack costs you $1,000 to compile. I think you might have a much better ROI with the West Ham stack than you will with the Liverpool stack per se. So I think it's going to come down. I think there's definitely merit to having a stack like that. And especially if you, because like the thing is too, is if you end up, maybe the plays you have 5 stacks and then you're just sitting there and like, you aren't running them every single week in certain competitions. You have different options that can make sense and run them instead. And but like then West Ham has a week where they have a really favorable match against Luton, and you're like, all right, I'm going to run them this time because it's a pretty solid spot. Like there's been times where West Ham has put up really, really good score lines. So I think there's quite a bit of merit in that. I think that that maybe the best ROI is not going to come from the Liverpool stacks. It's going to come from the West Ham stacks, the Brighton stacks, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean the number of times you have to hit is lower with a Burnley or with a whatever stack. He just said the fact that you can submit 3 teams high rolling with a shit stack is probably much better than it sounds. Yeah, you're muted again.
Maybe you have 2 good stacks and you have 1 lower level stack that
right. Yeah,
that you just run as like your lower like D4 lineup or whatever it ends up being.
Right. Surface said, do you think the new format changes the risk calculation around having dupes of the best players because you will want to stay in the highest division possible with each team?
So I think the best players having dupes of is not going to be a big deal because like I think
have what? Sorry.
If you
like cut out a little bit.
If you have the best players, having dupes isn't a bad thing, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Expect like even any seriously, like your idea, like so the idea of how things are broken right now, Mbappe. If you have Mbappe, that is the guy you want to be able to use as your old season card in the new season competition, right? Because he's the most expensive guy. So like he's the guy that you don't want to have to go buy another in-season card of. The guys that you want to buy in-season cards of are your goalies. Your goalies you want to buy the in-season cards of. You want to buy your like lesser players in a lineup. So like if you're doing like a Liverpool stack, like for example, like you definitely want Allison to be a new season player. You definitely want let's say Alexis McAllister. You want him to be a new season card. The one you probably don't want to be a new season card is like Trent. Trent being an old season card is okay because he's the most expensive guy. He's the guy you don't want to have to buy every single year, right? So like there's merit to that. I think that you definitely want to consider like looking through your cards, you're going to want to look through and be like, these are the most expensive players in my gallery. These are the guys that I do not want to have to buy every single year to get dupes of. And be like this, like Mbappe. Mbappe is like double the price of any other card. If I'm playing one out of season card in new season, that's the one I want it to be.
Yep, totally. Lewisham Lions. Do we think this new format is perfect for introducing the Saudi League in Contender, as now you won't be able to win Euro players, so it doesn't matter how they score? That was Champ Europe players.
I would. So we're asking if we get. I don't care what they do with Saudi League.
So the question was basically, is it okay for them to add Saudi because now it would, if it's in Contender, are you really going to buy Saudi players to win J League guys.
I mean, if they add Saudi League, they add Saudi League. If they don't add it, they don't add it. Like, I don't know. At this point, like, I don't really care what they do with Saudi League.
Vita says in Challenger.
Sure, they can pop in Challenger. I mean, you probably think it's better than the Scottish League, so.
I have no opinion on that.
Yeah, I just like. I mean, at this point, like, I just don't really care. I guess what they do with the Saudi League, right? Like, we've gone down that road at this point.
Yeah,
like the thing is too is like when I lost cards, like I lost like 10 to 15 ETH, I think last time in value when guys went to the Saudi League. Now it doesn't, like if I lose a guy, it's like 0.1 ETH. It's not the end of the world. I'm just saying.
There's also this expectation that like maybe they come back.
At this point, they probably can come back because like we've seen some of them come back. Like Jordan Henderson's now at Ajax, like he's already returned.
Right. Well, yeah. Is he smashing yet?
I think he's only played 2 games. I don't think he's been great.
Let's see.
I know he hasn't been great, but like I mean, I think he might have been taking some sets.
No sets yet?
No, I think he took sets this weekend. Like partial.
I was told he was going to.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm drunk.
Doesn't look like it.
No. Okay. Well, actually, maybe this weekend's not in there yet.
Do you think he ran over to this corner and
Berghuis was like, the game. I'm just trying to remember. Actually, did you see the end of the game? The end of the Ajax game, like the ball was like.
Let's think about that question, Sean.
What? Yeah, you don't watch any games. So, anyways, like they at the end of the game, Ajax like had a ball 99.9% of the way across the goal line and was not given. That's how the game ended.
So not only that, I was told that Pavel Bošnović cleared that ball and has not been given a clearance off the line for it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I watched that game. That's definitely how.
According to Jordan Henderson's heat map, he was nowhere near the corner.
Okay. Then he didn't take sets. I was like loosely watching that game. Like I wasn't like watching. I was like loosely watching that game.
Justice for Pavel, please.
Yeah.
I'm actually, you probably didn't even play it. Toby said, what's your opinion on this Lossel unique auction, Laird? I feel like you have him to get for the culture. I would consider that card if I could play a unique in the Super Rare division.
You probably would. Is Lossel like even the long-term starter there?
Sean, he might not start next week.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't look like a card that I'd be excited about.
Not you, me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt said he cleared the ball behind the line.
No, to be fair, I don't think they have goal line technology. They just had I think it was probably fully across, but it was like so freaking close that like you could not tell. And they called it no goal on the field. So I think that's like how it ended up being.
Yeah, a new decisive action, the clearance behind the line.
Yeah, like I think that it was like very close regardless, and I think it was probably a goal, but yeah, it wasn't given. It was an exciting end to the game.
And that's still Heerenveen conceding multiple goals for every game since the goalkeeper change.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad they made that change.
Yeah.
Anyway. Sean, where did you think, or I guess you haven't really looked at your gallery. Before you looked, where did you think your biggest holes were for the new Sorare?
Premier League.
Yeah.
I don't need to look at it. I know that's the answer.
Well, let me rephrase. Are you like short of the Premier League, or do you basically have nothing? Like you starting from scratch for the Premier League?
So I have better super rares than I do rares. Like I have like no rares. Like I don't even think I have a legit rare goalie. The issue is like people like the thing is though is like, all right, I have Bart Verbruggen. There's a realistic shot that Bart Verbruggen is like the starter at Brighton next year, right? Like
I would assume so.
Yeah, it's like a pretty realistic possibility. So like I'm not like, oh my God, I need to go buy Premier League goalies because I sort of want to see how that shakes out. Similarly, like there's going to be some guys that transfer into the Premier League. Like Diogo Costa probably transfers somewhere, champ, this season, you would think. And like, so I have him. So like all of a sudden,
do Wolves need a goalie?
What?
Do Wolves need a goalie?
Well, it's definitely, if they do, like that would make a lot of sense. Yeah. So I don't have anyone yet, but I think that yeah, I was just pulling that up.
Yes, we've got a Mbappe super rare. Is this the one of? It is the one of. We're at 9.12 ETH, 23 grand, with 4 minutes to go.
Investor Durr said, "Don't you think Sorare should just say that they will not change the structure for the next 3 years, for instance, would help users trust on Sorare?" Yeah, but so the issue with that is then like they can't change it, which they want to do. So
Wait, say that again.
if they do that, then they can't just change it when they want.
Right, like what happens if they're like, "Hey, we're keeping this for 3 years," and it's a total clusterfuck?
Yeah, and they're like here's the thing: they said last year they were keeping the threshold through at least this year, and they're like sort of doing that, kind
Yeah.
of. But like they want to change shit. They don't give a shit about you or me or any of us. They want to make adjustments that they want to make, and they just don't really give a shit like what our takeaway is from them. So I mean, that's more of a they're doing what they want to do thing. They would give us stability if they could. They just don't think they can.
Yeah. Oh, they don't know.
They
Like
don't know.
it's one of those things, and I've said this so many times that like there's no blueprint for this. They can't look at someone else like this is what worked for this company, so we'll do the same thing.
Well,
Sean,
you
what
guys
do you
remember,
how do you feel about this Georgie Petrovic slander right here?
Yeah, Petrovic is great. Great shot stopper.
Apparently not. Chelsea need a goalie, according to Ron.
Yeah, well then they'll bring in a new goalie, and then there you go. You have another opportunity to goalie. Yeah, they're so Hat Lingen said they're not changing anything fundamentally anytime soon. Maybe slightly, but this is sustainable and scalable. Disagree. They might not change anything, but they also might, which is a hesitation I have from a Sorare perspective is just that like they might change stuff, they might not. Like obviously their intention is to not change it, but like for example, they came out and said we're adding fitness no matter what you guys say, and then everyone's like, "That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard." And then
that is not what they said. They said we are adding fitness. There's none of this like no matter what you say.
All right, and then everyone's like, "That sounds absolutely stupid as shit," and then they decided not to add fitness.
So so there you go. Like, they got feedback from users,
correct,
and they said okay.
Like I could see some things being. I can see some. Like, I do not think they're gonna like roll back this or like change this. But like I could see some tweaks happen within how they're doing stuff.
I think one of the reasons why they don't need to adjust is because they've left themselves so much flexibility with these special weekly. We promise they'll be great. So like
correct. But like I'm saying, like I think there could be like you could need 5 new season rares, right? Like they could just change that and be like, you need 5 new season rares. There's just stuff that they could do that like there's changes that could happen that we just don't know. Like if I asked the question again like 2 months ago, do you think they're just gonna take a dump on U23, and do you think they're gonna remove Global All-Star and Rare Pro Division? You probably would have said no. They came out and did that. Like maybe they're going to be like, "Well, that really didn't work. We need to add All-Star Rare back," and they'll add All-Star Rare back, or maybe maybe they won't do that. So, but I think saying they will not do something is a very flawed approach right now. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's why I don't see the benefit.
Hatlingen said that's not a fundamental change though. That's a tweak. It will be structured like this. I don't know. Removing massive competitions that have been like the epitome of the platform is a fundamental change to me. So I guess it just depends like what you view fundamental changes as and what you don't think they are.
Jonathan said we can't even guarantee that they wouldn't switch between Denmark and Scotland in August. I think I would guarantee that doesn't happen.
Wow. Scotland hate from Laird over here.
No, Denmark love. But also I believe they said they won't change any of the teams in regions without
just wait till MLS becomes champ. That'll be great.
Right.
Which to be fair, you know what's funny is they want that. Like if MLS was champ, they would love that. Because MLS feels like one of their best partnerships.
Sean, do you think 9x the rare price is good for an Mbappe super rare?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't even know like what the
know
rare
either.
price is right now.
It's 1 ETH.
Rare and Bob is 1 ETH. Damn.
Yeah.
Went down again. They announced and then they just plummeted.
Someone bought for 1 ETH yesterday, but the floor right now, there's another one today. It's 1.068.
So basically, they brought PSG back and just Mbappe tanked off by like 40%.
The one of 100. It happens every time. There's a
non. He was like an ETH 1.3, 1.4 earlier, and then they just bring it back and boom, gone.
Yeah, the one of was 2 ETH, and the 2 of was 1.048. Actually, 3 of was 0.986. Less than an ETH.
I don't know. I'm sure it doesn't matter. It's just all what someone wants to pay. Oh, I do. Yeah. So Joe says he has a Flecken. I have a Flecken. So the issue is like I have a Flecken super. I have a Rhea super, but like I have no rares. So like super rares, I think I'm kind of okay.
Play him in the rare comp.
Yeah, I'm kind of yeah. No, that's something I'm gonna do consistently.
One thing you're definitely not doing.
Yeah, one thing I'm definitely not gonna do. I don't think it's bad to do it occasionally, but like I'm not gonna do it every week. Like if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna sell my super reflect and buy rare.
Right.
Like, no.
This is a good question though. Joe said I have a Brentford collection. I'm unsure whether to just buy another Flecken and be able to submit 2 Prem lineups or try to build another group of players in another comp. I feel like if you're just on a collection though, you're going to be playing 2 Fleckens and then 4 of the outfield players you want to play, and then another lineup of 4 that you don't want to play.
I think that there's some there's also the variance factor, right? Like let's say Flecken gets transferred to like the Dutch league. Like let's just lose his job and gets transferred to the Dutch league. You're in a world of hurt possibly. So like I don't know. Like I don't. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's just like whether you want to ramp up your variance or not. Like that's. I think goalies where you want to spend typically. Like the goalies that I would obviously want to buy are the Allison's, the guy that I know has his job and he's not losing his job. Like there's a lot of merit to like if you're gonna pay up at the goalie, like pay up for like the good goalie. It's better than buying these fringe guys that could get benched and then you're just kind of shafted.
Do you think that even if you're not quite sure what your strategy is, that just accumulating goalies is probably the safest thing to do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, goalies right now is definitely the safest thing to do, especially upper scarcities. Like if you get a guy that just becomes like the starter, I think it gains you a shitload of value. Like it adds a lot of value, no matter where they are.
I don't even mean backups. I just mean like it feels like if you can afford to essentially like collect goalies at this point, it gives you more flexibility when we can like multi-enter because it's much harder to get goalies later, ever. So if you can,
goalies and forwards are like the difficult things. That's why like I gotta look at my gallery,
particularly super rare.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I have super rares, but I don't think my forwards are good enough for like. So like I might have to transfer out of like some elite level super mids for like super forwards or something just to like branch out and have differentials.
Yeah. Arouge is asking if the Palmeiras cards will be in season in April since they were only minted 3 months ago. I think Sorare still need to clarify that. I don't know how Brazil works. We were talking about this with Argentina because Argentina does like the two league situation that like Liga MX does, and so their cards are 2023, but like technically that season started in 2023. I don't know how Brazil works, to be honest.
I don't know how they're going to do that stuff.
Vita said, I just got a Vanja at discount from someone selling his cap 240 rare roster. Obviously, a 60-ish cost goalkeeper was not a good option for him, so it's shopping time. I think it's a decent buy. Yeah. The Palmeiras is printed again in November. Yeah, I don't know. Sean, is Rivals dead?
Definitely a lot less interesting. I actually went on a 9-win streak this week in Nanzo. I run into Nanzo every freaking time. Like literally, it's so stupid. So the way that Rivals currently is kind of dumb, like in general. So I'm not gonna say it's dead, but like it's just like
I bought 2 cards for Rivals.
Yeah, I still buy like $5 cards here and there because I'm playing something, but like I don't know, like it's just kind of uninteresting.
I bought a rare card for Rivals.
I bought a rare card today for $5.
Yeah. All right. That's all I got. Maddie Server said, since the update, I played 5 games and every game was at least 300 elo lower.
The issue is it's just like, you like are sort of like the best way to play it.
Wild.
The best way to, that's Maddie's issue is an issue. But like, you're incentivized to play like 2 limits in a line, which is like stupid. Because they did, for those that didn't see, they got rid of you can't play commons unless you're in the UK or France, at which point it's still the same. Commons play commons and pros play pros, but the other ones it doesn't. But like, there is a weighted distribution with stuff. Like, I play Nanzo every freaking day. Like, if Nanzo plays and I play, we play, because there's some sort of like XP calculation. So you play someone with a similar XP.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you the example how stupid this was. So Keith and I both played a Rivals game on Saturday, and I played a guy who had an advantage over me, and I had like the same XP as Keith. And the guy I played Elo was like 200 below me, and Keith's Elo was like 70 below me. So I played that guy. So like, my win-loss is like, I win 5, I lose 8 or something. If I play Keith, like, I win 7, I lose 7. But I'm playing a guy that I'm at a disadvantage of because whatever reason, despite him being way lower on the Elo rating than Keith. I'm like, well, that makes no sense. But it's so like, literally, if I run a full lineup, I play Nanzo, where I'm guaranteed to at best be even with him. And then he's below me on the Elo rating. Whereas if I play like 2 limiteds, I probably will play someone above me on the Elo rating, and then I'm playing to win profitably. It's just the way it's set up just doesn't make much sense, sadly. The idea behind Rivals is great. The implementation and execution of it is not great.
We're getting there. Vita said there's only been 1 gameplay patch since Rivals launch. It needed 5 already. I'm guessing that, I know they have different teams, meaning they have like a Sorare Pro and Rivals people at Sorare, but my guess is that the Pro just took precedent given how humongous the changes are.
Yeah, but like the thing that they did last week, right? The patch they did last week, that patch should have been like 3 days after it came out. That was the patch.
I think they were waiting to see how people played it.
But I'm saying, like, that's like, that patch that came out like last Friday should have been the patch that came out the Friday it came out like a month ago. And the patch that came out this Friday was just like, again, like, the idea behind it and the thoughts behind it are great. I just think the implementation and the execution are really shitty, because like, it just doesn't incentivize you to buy cards. It incentivizes you not to have cards. Like, the ideal way to play it is to only have like a limited Mbappe, and then like a rare or a limited, like, insert whatever other player on their team you want to play, and then run 3 commons. And that's just kind of shitty. Like, I don't want to be playing these, but like, and now you can't just play commons, because if you play commons, you at best are even, and at worst you're at a massive disadvantage.
Yeah.
So it's just not set up well.
Well, I'm sure they'll fix it. We'll be fine. Don't worry, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for joining. If you could please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to Quinny. It feels like we are getting significantly more viewers lately, and I think a big part of the reason are all these changes. And so if you watch these videos and haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And as a reminder, there's a show every day, so there's always going to be more stuff. Tomorrow, the Sorare Data show will be with me, Gator Guy, and MPen to talk about his latest article about the new Sorare and all of that. So please come back for that. And so, yeah, good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.